Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We're so grateful to KCHF TV and Issues and Answers to bring you candidates who are running in the June primary, and we've been introducing them to you. We've invited them all, most of the sheriff candidate, all the sheriff candidates, also candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, and those who accepted our invitations. We're introducing them to you, and I'm so pleased to have with us today Lawrence G. Koren, or Larry Koren. He is currently working for the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department as an undersheriff for operations and criminal investigations. And as I understand, there are a number of candidates running for sheriff, and he is the only active law enforcement officer who is running for sheriff at this time. We're going to meet Larry and find out all about his background, why he wants to be sheriff. He wants the top post. Now he's undersheriff. Now he wants the top sheriff position. And we'll learn about his BA in criminal justice from UNM, his master's in criminal justice from New Mexico State University, and the School of Police and Command. He graduated from Northwestern University. That was the Center for Public Safety. So that's kind of interesting. There's a lot of interesting things about Larry. In addition to being an undersheriff and working for 23 years with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, he also is a pilot, fixed wing helicopter pilot, and a aircraft mechanic. So interesting past, and he wants to bring his experience to the top post at the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. We'll be with Larry Koren right after this. Please stay with us.
The National Education Association of New Mexico, a union of teachers and school staff, believes every child deserves to learn at a school that inspires their imagination, cultivates their curiosity, and ensures a fulfilling life. Public schools should provide all our students with small class sizes and one-on-one attention. NEA New Mexico asks you to join us so together we can end the teacher and staff shortage and invest in our public education system once and for all. Sponsored by NEA New Mexico.
My guest today is Lawrence Koren, or he calls himself Larry, but on the ballot you'll see Lawrence G. Koren. He is the current cabinet undersheriff at the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department and under operations and criminal investigations. And I'd like to introduce you to Larry right now. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Diane. I really appreciate you having me on your show.
So as I said, you want the top post. Right now you're undersheriff, and
Right.
You've been with Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department for 23 years. And I'm sure you've seen a lot that's been going on in our county, and now you want the top position.
That's right. I've been with the Sheriff's Office. I cut my teeth in law enforcement with Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. I've had no break in service, and I'm currently serving right now. I've been a field deputy, school resource officer, crisis negotiator, also served as a tactical flight officer and a rescue pilot.
That's fantastic. 23 years, going on 24 in October, nonstop with the Sheriff's Department here. What have you seen that you'd like to change and improve upon?
Oh, there's a lot of things that always room for improvement, and one of the chief changes that I want to address as I go into becoming sheriff, if elected, is really a multifaceted approach to dealing with crime here, and not only improving services for the county areas, but also for the city. My priority is with the unincorporated areas, and that's the county. But you can't have this discussion about crime and public safety without really getting down and nailing down the problems that we're facing in the city as well. So that chief among them is to try to make sure that we're providing not only the good services that we provide in the county, but trying to share that information, that service with the city as well. And so that's chief among them, and then trying to get these collaborative relationships, developing them and keeping them going.
Currently, as the undersheriff for operations and criminal investigations. What do you do in that position, Larry?
So for operations and criminal investigations, there's two chiefs, and they're outstanding chiefs that I have working for me. But there's one over the operations, which is the field services division. That's the biggest division that we have as far as personnel goes. Those are the people out on the street taking calls. We take approximately 130,000 calls for service per year. And with the criminal investigation side, there's a group of detectives that work criminal investigations with our homicides and property crimes and aggravated assaults and our special victims program. And so my job is really to make sure that things are working smoothly and make sure that they have what they need. And so oftentimes what I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure that we have the numbers that we have as far as recruitment and retention for our field services and our criminal investigations division, and making sure that they have the equipment that they need to succeed.
How many officers do we currently have with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's
Right now we're sitting, we're at about 320, we're funded for 329. We're sitting right at about 315 right now, which is really unheard of. I mean, we're running about 90% of capacity. It's unheard of for a law enforcement agency in today's world to see that kind of sustainment of our recruitment efforts and make sure that we're fulfilling that. So we're nearly 100% at times. A lot of other agencies are sitting right at about 50 to 60% of their capacity.
What have you seen over your 24-year career in Bernalillo? How has crime changed? How has safety changed in the county? And let's talk first about the unincorporated areas.
Yeah, so in the unincorporated areas, it's been truly amazing process during my career to witness the high quality service that our deputies are providing in the unincorporated areas. I see the unincorporated areas as being the place where you could right now live and have and recreate with your family and without being too much in fear, and that's a good thing. So the county areas, unincorporated areas are doing well.
What name some of the communities of the unincorporated areas?
So there's the Los Ranchos area up in the North Valley, and
Los Ranchos, okay.
Yeah, and then
that's a little pocket right there within the city.
And if you that's up in the northwest part of town, and then all around up in that area, and then the East Mountain area, Tejeras Canyon. You also have the South Valley area, which there's a lot of economic development taking place in those areas as well. So I think I attribute that really to the public safety services that are being provided there, not only with the sheriff's office, but also with the fire department as well.
Okay, congratulations on that. So how would you change things if you became sheriff?
The biggest issue that I have, and change doesn't need to take place just for change's sake, but what the biggest concern that I have really is when I have people from the city, for example, reaching out to our office asking for additional services or help because they're not getting the services that they're expecting. And for me, knowing that we're providing a quality service for the county, it's painstaking to hear this. And I live in the city as well, and I want to help out as much as possible. And so that's the biggest challenge right now that I'm facing.
The sheriff's department is over the city, or how would you explain that? Meaning we have the mayor appoints the police chief, elected mayor, chief of police, but the sheriff is elected by the people, and you're responsible for not just the unincorporated, but the entire county of Bernalillo.
That's correct. And so the sheriff is an elected office, chief of police is an appointed office by the mayor. As sheriff, you get elected by all the residents in the county, which includes the people living in the city. But our primary obligation is the unincorporated areas of the county. So the areas that don't fall within the city. That's our primary obligation. It doesn't mean that we could turn a blind eye to what's going on in the city, and I'm not calling fault on anybody in particular within the city, but yeah, I have to it's obvious, and you have to acknowledge that there's some issues going on with crime, homelessness, and drugs that we can't ignore. And the sheriff's office, when we get a call for service and where somebody's asking us for help, if we end up helping them.
When you get a call for service, Larry, are you speaking about through the 911 system or direct contact with the sheriff's department saying, I live in the city, I can't get response from the city police, I need some help? What types of calls are you getting?
Unfortunately, that's exactly what's happening. Is just like you described, where I'll get contacted directly sometimes, and sometimes through dispatch. But that basically, there's a horrible response time. Diane, let me ask you this: when was the last time you heard anybody really talking about response time in law enforcement? It's been nearly about 10 years at least, and
we've been hearing how bad it is. We've been hearing how when you call 911, they hang up and you can't get people. Yes, we've been hearing about it.
And so that used to be considered the measuring rod as far as whether or not an agency is being run effectively and efficiently is based on response time. I haven't heard that kind of a dialogue go on for quite some time. I could tell you the sheriff's office is still using that as a bit of a measuring rod, and so we do end up responding to calls for service. And you don't hear that anymore in a lot of law enforcement agencies. So it's a fundamental approach to law enforcement that I want to continue that.
Concerning the unincorporated, you're stating that it's relatively safe. Of course, anything's kind of relatively safe compared to the city of Albuquerque, sad to say. But there isn't problems of drugs and carjackings and stolen vehicles and burglaries and.
We still have issues just like that, but they shy in comparison to the city. My objective, one of the challenges that I'm going to move forward with, is to improve that collaboration with the city, and as long as they're acknowledging that they need the help and they're willing to accept the help, we'll provide it, and hopefully they'll support those efforts.
Well, in recent months and years, Larry, Koren, in the city of Albuquerque, as I understand it, as a layperson, not in law enforcement, there's a big crime scene. It's just not city police, but state police come in. I understand the sheriff is there, fire department. They all do come in. So when you speak about collaboration, don't we already have that? Aren't you just immediately going to a crime scene?
Yeah, we do have collaboration with in certain pockets of law enforcement and public safety, and it happens at the lower levels. What I want to do is bring that more to the executive level as well, so that we could really solidify those bonds between public service. And so for example, and this is one that I'm very familiar with, is our air support unit, for example. Our helicopter air program handles about 70-80% of the calls for service that our air unit provides are for the city of Albuquerque. We don't have any objection to providing that service, and we're going to continue to do so. Our SWAT team, for example, we help the city of Albuquerque quite a bit with the responses to people who are barricaded and subjects like that. Not to say that those favors aren't reciprocated, they are. But in the totality of what we do, we provide a lot of services to the city. In fact, we take thousands of calls for service for the city of Albuquerque.
I wonder if the public realizes that.
I think oftentimes people don't associate the county sheriff working in the city, but if you pay close attention to some of the areas and some of the media coverage, and take a look at the background video, and they're maybe talking about a city of Albuquerque call, but you often see sheriff's deputy vehicles in the background.
And actually doing this program and interviewing the candidates for the sheriff, I've learned that. Again, I really thought the sheriff pretty much was out in the unincorporated areas. But again, you're sheriff over the entire county, not just unincorporated.
That's it. And there's for the Bernalillo County Sheriff, there's really two areas of responsibility, and that's handling criminal investigations of crime, and then there's the civil matters of executing or putting out warrants and apprehending offenders and writs of subpoenas and delivering subpoenas. Other counties throughout the state, the sheriff often has the additional duty of basically keeping offenders in jail. That's been changed here in Bernalillo County, where there's actually a separate department for incarceration.
Okay. Otherwise, some counties is overseen by the sheriff,
That's
but
right.
not here in Bernalillo County.
Not here in Bernalillo.
What would you like to point out to the viewers that I haven't touched upon, Larry?
You know, I think the important thing is if you're going to be voting for your sheriff, make sure that you take a look at their background, take a look at their experience, their education, and their willingness to collaborate. And I think you'll find that I'm the guy when it comes to collaboration.
And you speak about collaboration, just not well at the local level with the state, but federal, and also you say non-government stakeholders. Collaborating with them. What do you mean by that?
So your faith-based organizations, your nonprofit organizations, to make sure that we're working with them. You've got to have to have a balance as working in the sheriff's office of not only being that law enforcement, that stick basically in putting people, apprehending people or deterring them from crime, but you also have to take on that community caretaker role, and we can't do that alone. Basically we become basically impromptu or default social workers of sorts, and providing the social services, or at least putting them in contact with community-based organizations, nonprofits or faith-based. And so that's an important bridge to gap between those services that are out there and the people who need them. And oftentimes it's the law enforcement officer who bridges that gap.
Because they really don't know they need them until they need them, they need them, right? They haven't investigated the different faith-based organizations, what they're able to provide, or the public service, until possibly they're in a crisis situation, and that's when they need the help. And I guess they reach out to you first, and then you reach out with
exactly.
Organizations.
And so one of my initiatives that I want to press forward with is to really kind of, although we have a fundamental law enforcement approach, which basically we go out and we have to do investigations, provide that deterrent effect on people who may be attempting to or getting ready to commit a crime, but we also have to bridge the gap on technology too, and information sharing, not only among law enforcement agencies, but bridge the gap with some of these behavioral health specialists and behavioral health services, and bridge that gap. And so one of the efforts that I'm pushing forward is to make sure that we're able to do that through technology, and that for example, if Diane, you were having an issue, I could readily look up behavioral health or issues, or kind of describe your issue, maybe not you in particular, but have a bit of an algorithm to say Diane's of such an age and she's in this kind of situation, she's admitted to certain conditions that she's experiencing, and then have that information be pulled up readily on a database that we could say, okay, here's the possible resources we can get you to.
Again, that's something I don't think the general public realizes a sheriff's department would be doing. Well, it does sound more like the social service department.
Yeah, and I think it would be beneficial to not only the sheriff's office, but firefighters, teachers, some caseworkers, and social workers.
How realistic is it to have a database like that?
I think it's very realistic. In fact, I have a hard time believing that we haven't even breached that yet with today's technology and internet. The fact that I could pull up my phone and FaceTime a group, and yet I have yet to see an app, a local app that stays up to speed on the latest management and points of contact with any social or behavioral health services. It baffles me. And so part of my experience here recently, over the past 6 months, I've been involved in a couple of different gap analysis groups, and that was one of the initiatives that I brought forward to them.
The city of Albuquerque, I believe is changing the policy has changed. Now they'll have perhaps a social worker or someone in the behavioral health go out on a call. In the past, they maybe had a police officer go out. Now, if it's some kind of an emotional crisis, they won't have a police officer, but somebody who's trained in that area. Does the county have that program as well?
We do. We have a couple different layers of behavioral health related specialists and social workers, and so we have our regular social workers, which is we have 2 full-time social workers and 1 part-time social worker, contract social worker. So basically 1 for each area command, and they work collaboratively as well. So they help share information, and then we have on top of that we have our MCT, which is a mobile crisis team, and those are specially trained deputies that kind of had an additional level of crisis negotiation experience and training, and they work closely with behavioral health clinicians from the behavioral health department within the county, and so they actually go out on active calls and help with negotiations. And so between those two, in addition to all of the deputies, all sworn personnel who also have a certain level of crisis intervention training, we have various different layers and facets to address behavioral health issues, and as a group, as kind of a united front to deal with some of these issues, we've got it pretty well covered.
You discuss improve access to services. Is that using technology, or what are you referring to that? To how would you improve access to services?
So part of my initiative too is to keep things some continuity in what we're doing is I put forth some capital improvement plans to get the deputies closer in proximity to our service areas. And so, for example, moving us closer to areas that could not only benefit the county but also the city as well. So, for example, the latest thing was trying to get, and it's already been approved to move forward with it, is to have a northeast substation up near Paseo and Eubank. But so north of Paseo is pretty much all the county patrol area. To the south side is going to be the city, and so that puts us closer in proximity to city areas as well. It gets us closer over to the tramway to make that direct shot down to a central area. And so there's some areas that are going to be you're going to see increased law enforcement presence along those corridors of tramway and Paseo and some of these racing corridors, some of these areas that are prone to having accidents and street racers, and here lately, the closer you get to central area, some shootings and whatnot. And so that's just one example, and we're going to move forward to try to get some other things going on. So trying to move, for example, the air support unit closer in proximity to the international airport. Right now, both air units, the Bernalillo County air unit and the Sheriff's air unit, or the Albuquerque air unit, are located about 20 miles west of town. I'm pushing to get at least the Sheriff's air unit closer to the city center, international district, and because that tends to be our primary response area.
Primary response area, okay. At the beginning of the program, I discussed, of course, your bachelor's and master's degree in criminal justice, but also that you graduated from Northwestern University in Illinois, the Center for Public Safety School of Police and Command. What was that?
That was an online school, and it was tough. I had already gone through a master's program through New Mexico State University, which was an outstanding university. Did a number of papers, wrote a number of papers there, as well as studied community policing and integration of community policing throughout the academy curriculum. And so that was one of the first efforts that I put forward. This with the police staff and command, I ended up doing a collaborative piece as well, which had to do with deconfliction of law enforcement services.
Regarding cameras on deputies. Do we have them currently?
We currently do, and it's pretty near 100%. I'd like to see actually more cameras on vehicles. And we have them on our sworn personnel. We made a major investment. A lot of these commissioners in the state and these legislators grossly underestimated the amount of money that it was going to take to fund these cameras. But I'm all on board with it. We've purchased the cameras. In fact, I want to take it a step further and do further integration of technology into our public safety.
I've read online that you want to ensure best practices and use of force. What do you mean by that, and how would you do that, Larry Koren? So
with best practices of use of force, oftentimes this is coming down to training, and we want to make sure that our personnel receive the latest and greatest training based on case law and court decisions on what is considered the best practices. We want to make sure that we have a good array of force array when we show up to calls, and that every deputy is trained on different apparatus or different devices.
Have there been instances or a problem with this in the past in the Sheriff's Department? With the Sheriff's Department,
there's always questions that come up about whether or not the deputies use an appropriate level of force or not. And that's the thing. These aren't one-time fixes. These are things that are reoccurring that we always have to examine, and we constantly do. It's not like we put together a standard operating procedure and leave it alone. We have a committee that evaluates the technology and changes in SOP, as long as we also get a legal review as well. So we just want to make sure that what we're doing is up to speed.
You are from the southeast. You were raised in the southeast part of Albuquerque, and you currently live in the city of Albuquerque. You have 2 sons, and you're married, and you still live within the city.
I do. I don't live too far from where I grew up. Just up the road a bit on the north side of Central rather than the south side of Central. And I love this community. I'm here to serve, and I love to serve. And I just want to improve law enforcement services and public safety services for the residents of Bernalillo County.
Because you and your family live right here as well.
Absolutely. My wife and I got into a discussion at the beginning of the year, and she asked me a few questions, and she said she basically asked if we needed to move out of Albuquerque. She asked also if the Democrats are on the wrong side of law enforcement right now, and here we both are Democrats. I happen to be K through 8 licensed teacher as well. My wife is a teacher. She's been teaching for over 15 years here, and when she's asking me these questions, I take it to heart. I know that I know what she's really asking is, have I given up, and do I want to move? And my answer is no. I'm here. I love Albuquerque. I love Bernalillo County. I love working for the county, and I'm here to serve, and I want to serve.
Very good. Thank you. And as a question, sadly, a lot of people ask, is it time to move out? But yeah, maybe there'll be new life with this election, so thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Koren is running for Bernalillo County Sheriff. Thank you for being my guest of the program today.
Okay.
And thank you for watching. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join. I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture. It helped me get my job, it helped me pay for my house. Being part-time really helped because I could have some opportunities that were still in education.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.